Zayin and Ralph. Now, the truth is, we're in the middle of a sugya. We're talking about how Mordechai and Esther convinced Chazal, the Anshe Knesset Agdola, to include Esther in Tanakh. So they wouldn't do it. They refused to do it again, because what Goyim might say, and they're going to cause trouble if they see the defeat of Haman. He didn't like that last week, and so it's a bad day for you.
I like even less.
Yeah, it's a bad day for you today, so we won't rub it in. All right, I just want to tell you. All right. So in any event, so they have this question as to why whether they're going to make it a holiday or not make a holiday. So let's take it from let's take it from the top. Amru, the first line. Amru Ksiv, it says, Eila mitzvahs asher tzivah Hashem es Moshe. These mitzvahs that Hashem commanded Moshe. Eila mitzvahs that nitzavein mipi Moshe. These are the mitzvahs God commanded us from Zayin and Ralph, 13 in Megillah. Yeah, 13. So, the second line. Elam mitzvahs should savein be Moshe. These are mitzvahs were commanded by Moshe. V'kacha marlona Moshe. This is what Moshe told us. Ein novi acher osi l'chadish lochem dover mi'atzo. You can't add anything now. Next thing you know, you'll be having new testaments, right? So no more Megillah. You think it's funny? Wait till you see what's going to go on here.
That is the basis.
Just a minute. Wait a second. Just a minute. Patience. So lo zazim misham. They didn't move from there. Nosim and Nosim Medover. They kept on discussing matter back and forth. This is basically also in the Bavli as well. Acher Kodesh Baruch Hu was their name until Hashem illuminated their eyes. Umatzu osok ksuva b'Torah neviim ksuvim. They found that it's supposed that there's illusion in the Torah that Mechias HaMolik should be in Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim in all three. Although that's that which it says, Vayom Hashem Moshe, Hashem said to Moshe, Ksov Zos Yikolom B'Sefer, write this as a commemoration in the book, right? Zos is Torah. K'mod the Tamar, as you say, V'Zos HaTorah Shel Moshe Levnei B'nei Yisrael, this is Torah which Moshe prays before B'nei Yisrael. Zikaroin Elu Nevi'im. That's the book of the prophets, as it says, "Vayikosev Sefer Zikar L'Fon of L'Yirei Hashem." The Nevi'im are written as a book of commemoration for those who fear God. B'Sefer, finally, B'Sefer Elu Ksuvim, right? So Zikaron B'Sefer, what's called a Sefer, besides Zikaron, that is the Ksuvim, and from this we saw that there's supposed to be a proportion in Ksuvim called something in Ksuvim which has to do with Mechias HaMolik. So therefore we have it in Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim, right? Umama Esther
it's not overly for me to bring this in, especially since I wasn't here on Thursday. But what I'm wondering is, the whole problem is, we already said a few dafim back anyway that Megillah is Torah anyway, according to one view. What's our problem, really?
The Megillah is in Torah, according to one view?
Yeah.
We said a few blot ago. We're going to have it here.
We're going to have it here?
Yeah.
I thought we already said it.
I remember saying that. I sure you didn't look ahead.
Maybe I snuck ahead.
Cheaters never prosper. Okay. Says the Gemara, Umama Esther came as the word of Esther sustained these words of Purim. V'nichta b'sefer is written into the book, meaning into Ksuvim. Now, Rabbi China, Rabbeinu Bar Kapara, Rishon Levi, Amru, this line which you just stole, HaMegillah Azos Nemra LeMoshe MiSinai. This Megillah was given to Moses at Mount Sinai. Is this the line you're referring to? Saying like this? I don't remember. Your memory says a lot of times better than mine, but I don't remember it. So, no, it's on the Bavli. Now, such a strong statement that the Megillah was stated to Moshe at Sinai, obviously what it means is that this Megillah is already rooted in Toraisos, right? So therefore, but the language is very, very strong. El Shein Muktam Muchar B'Torah. Meaning that it could have really been in the Torah itself, but it was put later chronologically in history into the Ksuvim. Okay? Very strong language. And
that latter statement really takes it out of the twist, the spin you wanted to give it.
Which is?
you want to give it a spin is like, it has some, this sort of...
it's meaningful as if it was given Sinai.
This is not, that's...
Yeah, but I'm using a kind of a sledgehammer, a little bit of poetic license on this. I think that the statement is may include poetic license. I don't really think they mean a mukta mukhar b'Torah that, they could have been, the Megillah could have been in the middle of Parshas Vayron. Instead, they cut and pasted it to Ksuvim.
But it's a strange...
It's a very... I agree. I can't... I'm not happy with it, but I'm less happy with the alternative. So that's why I'm kind of stuck with it. To say that it's literal, that there was cut and paste going on here from Torah and putting Ksuvim. Rabbi Yoel and Shimon Levi, Shimon Lakish, had a machlokas. Rabbi Yechon Omer, Hanavim Ksuvim Asidim Libato. Nevi'im and Ksuvim are eventually going to be cancelled. The Chamesha Sifrei Torah Einan Asidim Libato. However, the 5 books of Moshe are never going to be cancelled. Now, this is my time, or what? Now, this is not in Bavli. I always thought this was a Medrash, but it seems that it's obviously Yerushalmi, which is that all the Nevi'im, it's really, Gemara in the Dharm says something similar, that really, Me'ikra Din, there should only been Chamisha Chumshei Torah and Sefer Yoshua. Chamisha Chumshei Torah because that's the laws and that's eternal, and Sefer Yoshua because that's to Eretz Yisrael, the boundaries and the vision of the land. But Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us all the rest of the books because the more miserable we were, the more prophets we needed and kings we needed in order to rebuke us and put us on the right path. Even that doesn't seem to have worked very well. But that was the reason all these Nevi'im were put in. So Lasid Lavo, all the Nevi'im are no longer necessary. So therefore, Rabbi Yechon uses very strong language. Not that they'll disappear poof, but they will not be, as central, as necessary as they are in this world.
What about Tehillim?
It says. That's what it says. Not necessary.
But isn't Tehillim something that's been ingrained in
by Hasidim, not by Misnagdim. For Hasidim and women, it's not by Misnagdim. We don't. So in any event, as Chaim Volodger says, that's the David HaMelech asked it to be on the same level as learning Uktzin and Olos, but he wasn't answered. Doesn't bring down there an answer. So in any event, so here it says, my time, what's the reason why Chamisha Chumshei Torah not cancelled? Kol Gadol, it says about Chamisha Chumshei Torah, Kol Gadol, a large voice, V'lo Yasaf, and never ceases. Shimon ben Lakish Omar, this is brought down the Rambam, very famous Rambam, Af Megillas Esther, V'halachos, Megillas Esther, of course, all halachos, right, all the Tariq mitzvos, and Asin Libato, they're never going to be cancelled. Shneimar Kan Kol Gadol Lo Yosef, it says by Matan Torah, a loud voice which never ceased. Also, it says by 1 second. Well, just a second. Neman also it says by Purim v'zichol no yosef mizaro, their commemoration will not cease from their children. Halachos. Halichos olam lo. It says halichos olam lo. Halichos are eternally for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we say halichos here refers to halachos. Halachos means the Talmud, Torah Sheba'al Peh. Where it's Torah Shebiksav, you don't need anything besides Chumshei Torah and Esther. But Torah Sheba'al Peh, halachos are necessary. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'olam el dal ramashal halacha bilvad. Halacha is very essential. Okay. What? Because there's an alternate on this Gemara which says that all the holidays will be canceled, opposed to Sifrei Nevi'im. Right, this is the Yerushalmi, but the Yerushalmi is not the only word on the topic. It's the Medrash which says that it's the holidays.
I'm just curious why you say the halachos refers to Torah Sheba'al Peh.
What else would you say? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't see what else could we be referring to? Or just by process elimination.
You had a particular, so that's what. I was wondering whether you had a particular basis.
I have no particular basis. It's just a hunch. If you come to something better, on the contrary. Rabbi Levi Shimon Lakish said, Sofa Kodesh Baruch Hu Shaman al Roshav, another famous Medrash. Kodesh Baruch Hu, this is actually in Bavli as well. Kodesh Baruch Hu saw that Haman al Rosh is eventually Osid is going to Lishko Kaspo, to weigh out his money, Al Yisrael against the Jews. Amar, he said, Mutav Shiachtiv Kaspo Shabbanai, better that the money of my children should come prior to Kaspo Shosarasa, to money of that Rasha. Ficham Makdim, according to Parshas Kolim, that's why we read Parshas Kolim, prior to Purim. Rav Abu Shem Rabbi Lazar. This is going back in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that when we have a leap year, we read the Megillah in Adar Sheni. So Rav Abu Shem Rabbi Lazar said, B'chol Shana V'Shana Hiki, it says that you make these days each and every year. B'chol Shana V'Shana, that's a language of the Megillah Esther. Hiki Shana Shimu Beres, Shana Shenu Beres. There's a linkage drawn between a leap year and a non-leap year. Ma Shana Shenu Beres, in a non-leap year, Adar Samachlin, you read Megillah and the Adar, which is adjacent to Nisan, the only Adar. Av Shana Shimu Beres, so the leap year, Adar Samachlin Nisan, it's in the Adar, which is adjacent to Nisan. Why? Rabbi Chelbo K'tei Lismoch Geula Gula. So Rabbi Chelbo says it's in order to draw a linkage between the Geula of Purim and the Geula of Mitzrayim. Rabbi Leib Shem V'Chamis Chanina said no. Also, Shana, that year of the Nes Purim, Haismu Beres. That year when they had Purim was a leap year. Ma'atama, what Pasuk tells us this, Miyoim Liyom, when Haman made the Goyrol, he made it from day to day, Mechodesh L'Chodesh Nemasar, from month to month to the 12th month, Hu Chodesh Ador. The words Hu Chodesh Ador are superfluous, right? Why does it say Hu Chodesh Ador? So it means the month, which is normally 12 months, but this time was the term. Remember, Yerushalmi Shita, we darshan Megillah Esther as if it's, that's what you're referring to. Now I remember what you're referring to. You're referring to how it says, we darshan Megillah Esther Ki'ilu Hu Shel Torah.
Something like that.
That's what we had. Not that it's Midoraisa, but it was written with the same exactness. Nina Lidorish. Yeah, but that's not the same thing we're saying here. Today we said something different. Today we said it was given to Moshe at Mount Sinai, which is obviously different than saying Nina Lidorish. Because Nina Lidorish, we could also try and write something which is Nina Lidorish.
Except the difference with Nina Lidorish obviously is something that is comparable to like darshan.
Yeah, now that you see both, I understand. Now that you see both Gemaras together, so you can kind of connect them. But I would not have done it. So it was a creative leap on your part before you saw this Gemara. Okay, but in any event, so here we see also again this concept of drasha that we darshan Hu Chodesh Ador is superfluous. Rather, it tells us that it was the 13th month it was supposed to occur.
All it does establish that it didn't take a sneak peek.
That's right. You're innocent. You stand vindicated. All right, now.
I'm disappointed you didn't chazer ahead.
Now it says we're other Rishon Tosefis, other Asheni Tosefis. The which one? It's actually a question. Is which one is the added month? Other Rishon or other Sheni? Which is the added one? So it says the Gemara, Mina Mabinun. Who cares? What difference is it? So Shmuel Yitzchak said, "I'll tell you." Omar, he gives it in the basic nafkamina. Shnei kivsei. It says here Shnei kivsei atzeres, but it's obviously a mistake. It's not the lambs of Shvus, but the lambs of a Tomid by name. That's the difference. Now, how long is a lamb kosher for? From the time it's born, take a wild guess.
4 days.
That's the minimum. What's the maximum? A year. So the question is when the year expires, right? Obviously, it's going to be the nafkamina. No la b'chamisha sarba if it's born on the 40th day of Adar, b'shana she'ena muberes in a non-leap year. V'nichlas yishana sheberes, and now it goes into the next year as a leap year, right? In tema Adar rishon tosefes, if you're going to say that first Adar is the additional month, so then what do you have? Shana Rukahi. He's got a long year of 13 months till the next Adar Sheni. Even though this is an Adar, and next month year there are going to be 2 Adars, but since the Adar Rishon is the added Adar, he's got the Adar Sheni, right? In time Adar Sheni Tosefes, you want to say Adar Sheni is the added month, and the Adar Chamisha Sarba Adar Rishon, so got the 15th of Adar Rishon the next year. Now it's interesting, the Ritbaz goes crazy here. He says, there's Yerushalmi which says that, very famous Yerushalmi, that a Basin makes a leap year, so is halacha that a girl's besulim come back, if she's raped, she retains her besula status because it regrows until she becomes 3. So until she becomes 3, it grows back in place. So the Yerushalmi says, what happens to Basin? We didn't have it yet, but the Yerushalmi says, what happens to Basin's Ma'aber L'Shana? So the Yerushalmi Sanhedrin says, grows back another month, because Basin dictates reality. That's what it says. So he says, so why here is it not the same thing? Let the goat or the lamb have an additional month, because Basin was Ma'aber of the year, regardless of which is the extra month.
Also, your side that is held. If someone
Well, that's a direct result of this Gemara, the Yortzai business. But in any event, so he says what he says, and so I don't know. It's a little bit difficult, but I want to say that it's simple. The year of by Psula, it's 3 years this year. By a lamb, it's 12 months. Right, because the one has to do with the amount of multiple years. The other has to do with when it comes back to 12 months later. So when it has to do with 12, if it has to do with 1 year, i.e., 12 months, that depends how we measure 12 months. If it's 12 months on the 12 months, it has to be 12 calendar months. Which is the 12th calendar month? Is either Rishon or either Sheni. Well, if doing with an expanse of several years, then you go to the end of the last year without any question about that. Maybe that's the chiluk. In any event, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yavai Banagre, V'ayv Nesem Masnisa Amar Kain. Either Rishon Tosefes. Our mission tells us either the first Adar is the additional one. The theater one we learned over there. Hene you do in this Mishnah. Shem B'Avim is Shoshana Kol Adar. You can make an Iber Yor. You can make an extra month, the entire month of Adar. Shayu Omrim. Now that was a later statement because initially Shayu Omrim Adar Purim. You can only add a month until Purim. After Purim, you already made Purim that year. What are you going to add another month? You're going to make a second Purim? You can't do that, right? So they said it's only until Purim, right? So they said. So later on, they came along and they said the Ma'abris Shona not just until Purim, but until the very end of Adar, you can add a month. Also, they testified Shemar Shona tonight. That you can make a Iber Shana on condition. And the Korban brings down the condition is that the Nasi will acquiesce. So in any event, what are we trying to prove from here? Adamara is a very strange Gemara. Adamara, this teaches us Adar Rishon Tosefes. The first Adar is the extra one. Because the Tamer Adar Sheni Tosefes, if you're going to say the Adar Sheni is the second, the Adar Sheni is the extra one. Lokim al Shanta. There's no time left in the year. And you're going to make a leap month? Now, the way I understand this is that the last Adar, the last month before Nisan, always has 29 days. So we're going to see that in a few moments. Adar Rishon, therefore, always has how many days? 30. Because it alternates 30, 29, 30, 29. So if the last month is 29, so the month before is 30, right? So that means if you're going to be able to make a leap month, all 29 days of Adar Rishon, right? That means that now, on the 29th day, you're going to come and you'll say, oh, you know what? Let's make a leap year. That means tomorrow was already prepared to be what? Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? And instead you're taking that day, which was going to be Rosh Chodesh Nisan by Cheshbon, and you're making it Lamed Adar Aleph. So that's skewing it. That you're not allowed to do. In other words, you have no time left in the year, in the fiscal year of Iber Shana, and nevertheless you're trying to attack on an additional, not just month, but an additional day, which was already suitable to be Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, what the Gemara seems to be saying is that in such cases, you cannot add on an extra month, again, because already this day was supposed to be the last day of the month, it was destined, and to make it now not the last day of the month is not permissible. So at the right, if you can make Adar Rishon, until the very last day of Adar Rishon, a leap year, that means Adar Rishon is the Tosefes. It is the additional month, and that's why you're allowed to add on a 30th day. Is that relatively clear? You can only add, again, if Adar Rishon, when there's Adar Rishon Adar Sheni, no matter what, Adar Rishon is 30 days and Adar Sheni has 29 days. But if Adar Rishon has, if you're allowed to add on to Adar Rishon, a 30th day in midstream, that indicates that Adar Rishon is already predestined to be a 30-day month in some way, shape, or form, by it becoming the leap month. And that's why, because if the Adar Rishon was not the extra month, but rather Adar Sheni was the extra month, so then Adar Rishon was always intended to be a 29-day month. You can't tamper with it and make it a 30-day month. That seems to be what the Yerushalmi is saying. Now the Yerushalmi continues in this vein. Mar Ukva Ashkach Tren Igrin. Mar Ukva found two letters. B'chad Aksiv. It's the two letters of the Batei Din at the time who were making leap years. B'chad Aksiv, in one it said V'shashvar Ba'pai, it found favor in our eyes, U'Ba'pei Chavirai, and in favor of our friends, Musval Shato, to add to the year, plus in Yom, 30 days. We had 30 days to the year. B'chad Aksiv V'shapar Ba'pai, U'Ba'pei Chavraya, it was found favor in the eyes our eyes of our friends, Musval Shato, to add to the year, Yerech Yomin, a month of days, not 30 days. So Madamat plus in Yomin says that the additional was the letter which says that the 30 days were added on. That's Adar Rishon Tosefes. He holds Adar Rishon Tosefes because Adar Rishon is 30 days, right? Madamar Yerach Yomin says 29 Yerach, which means here obviously 29 days. Adar Sheni Tosefes. He adds the additional month is Adar Sheni, which actually has 29 days. Says if you want to learn from here, Leishma Mino Klum, you can't derive anything. Dam Rabbi Yaakov Barachav, Rabbi Yudam Gezurei, Rabbi Simon B'Shem Rabbi, they all B'Shem Rishon Levi, they all said, it's not necessarily true. You can make 2 months in a row, which are both 30-day months. And if you can, on the other hand, make a 30-day month and then a 29-day month, right? And if you want, as Baruch said. So, but if you did that, Masha Asli. If you want, you can do that. If you want, you don't have to do that. In other words, it's not, he holds, if Shimon Levi holds, it's not kavua, it's not said that it's always 30-29, 30-29, 30-29. It can be vice versa. Okay? That's his mahalch. Says the Gemara, nevertheless, what does Marukva hold? Looks like there are a couple of words missing here. What does Marukva hold? Marukva holds Olam Adar Samach LeNisan Chaser. He holds the Adar, which is adjacent to Nisan. It's always a 29-day month, and that's why he brought a raya, depending on what language you use, 30 or 29. What exactly the nature of the leap year was. It's an interesting thing that I was preparing my shiur for Shavuos night, which is going to be about the calendar. So it's an interesting thing that. The dates, the amount of days in a Jewish year are not fixed. It all has to do with when Rosh Hashanah would come out, when Yom Kippur would come out, when Pesach would come out, and therefore it's actually not true that there's a 19-year cycle. Because within the 19-year cycle, it's not 100% accurate that you're going to have the same precise amount of days in the year, let's say, in the next 19-year cycle as you had in the previous 19-year cycle. Rav Nachshon Gaon actually discovered that. Rav Nachshon Gaon has an equal to Rav Nachshon Gaon, which is a 247-year cycle. Because actually every 247 years, it repeats itself almost identically, but not quite. It's off by 905 chalakim. 905 chalakim is almost about 50 minutes. And actually somebody who made the math figured out that it takes exactly 690 some odd thousand years for the Jewish calendar to make a perfect cycle and come back until you have all 905 chalakim gathering up, so they create, a time which could be knocked off and be precise. Well, I hope Mashiach comes before 690,000. 690,000. Okay. Says Gemara further. Tani Rav Shimon Bli Omer, mitzvahs hanogos b'adar sheni, ein hanogos b'adar rishon. The mitzvahs would apply to adar sheni, do not apply to adar rishon. Right? What does it mean they don't apply to adar rishon? Of course, it means that to all Megillah and stuff like that, it applies only to adar rishon, not to adar sheni. Right? Chutz min hesped and tainis, with two exceptions. One is not allowed to make a hesped or a tainis on Purim Rishon. Shein shavim b'zeh b'zeh, that is equivalent in both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. One is not allowed to make hesped tainis in Adar Rishon, just like Adar Sheni. Rabbi Shimon Levi said, Halakha Rishon Gamliel, that essentially everything is an Adar Sheni. Rabbi Chuna Rabba the Tzipor, Rabbi Chuna the great of Tzipor, Omar, he said, Hinig Rabbi Chanina b'Tzipor, Rabbi Chanina was the rabbi in Tzipor, and Paskin Kator Rishon Gamliel. However, it's only Hinig, or Minuk, Lomar Hinig, El Halacha Lo. It could be that halacha might someday change, but the custom is that the only difference with that Adar Rishon only has Purim Katan, only has the difference between is only us and Esme and Tainis, not anything else. Avalina Shtaros, however, in terms of Shtaros, Kaisvin Adar Rishon v'Adar Sheni. You write Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni, Elish Kaisvin Adar Sheni, Tinyonin. You write Adar Sheni, Tinyonin. Some reason they used to write in Aramaic, they wouldn't write Sheni, they would write Tinyonin. I don't know why. Rabbi Yehuda Omer HaSheni, since that's the case, the second one, Kosef Tov. You just write Adar Tov. V'dayon, that's enough, right? Because Tov is like shorthand for Tinyoni, which is the second Adar, right? Tamzi, we learned, elsewhere, Ein ben Adar Rishon l'Adar Sheni, so there's not Adar Rishon l'Adar Sheni, El Kriyas HaMegillah Matanos Avyonim. The only difference is Kriyas HaMegillah and Matanos Avyonim. Kriyas HaMegillah and Matanos Avyonim apply only in Adar Sheni, not in Adar Rishon. But other things like Shalach Monas would apply also in Adar Rishon, right? Rabbi Shimon, we don't pass over Rabbi Shimon Levi said, Av Shimush Shkolim V'Kilayim Ish B'neim. There's another difference. To tell people to bring their Shkolim, and to tell people to uproot their Kilayim is only Adar Sheni, not Adar Rishon. Why is that? Skip 2 lines, it's superfluous. Rabbi Yosef said, V'yos, is saying good. Why do we say that you have to tell people to pronounce the mitzvah of Shkolim? Lo kadesh yavu yisrael shikleim be'onosan. There's not that order the Am Yisrael should bring the Shkolim at the proper time. If you're going to tell them to make the announcement ad Rishon, ad kedun is b'shayt shitin yoimin. There's still 60 days left in the year, so people are not going to be diligent. They're going to forget. They're going to say, "Oh, we have plenty of time." Rosh Chodesh is 60 days off. They're not going to bring it. Furthermore, why they say that on Rosh Chodesh Adar you go out to tell people to watch for kilayim in the fields? Lo kadei shutzmach and yikarav is not that, because then the growth is recognizable. Now people know to stop their plants from becoming kilayim, from growing commingling together. So in Adar Rishon in the year when they make Adar Sheni is like Shvat. It's much too early. Akadun by then, even the kikin, they're still very small, so they won't be able to tell the difference. Won't be able to tell which are kilayim, which plants are going together, and which are not. So therefore, you have to wait till Adar Sheni in order to make the pronouncement about kilayim. Okay, the rest of the parak actually, but the rest of the Masechta in a larger sense, the rest of the parak does not talk about the Megillah. It's a whole bunch of Ein Bains. Once we said Ein Bain Adar Rishon Adar Sheni, that was the last Mishnah. So I'll tell you about a bunch of other Ein Bains. For example, Ein Ben Yontav l'Shabbos, the difference between Yontav and Shabbos, El Oichel Nefesh Yovad, except on Yontav one can prepare Oichel Nefesh. Ein Ben Shabbos Yom Kippurim. There's no difference between Shabbos Yom Kippur. El Shizeh Dorne B'dei Odom. If you transgress Shabbos intentionally, you get stoned at the hands of man. Zeh Dorne, because if you to transgress Yom Kippur intentionally, you get killed at the hands of heaven. Tani B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda, we learn name Rabbi Yehuda. Av Machshiri Ochel Nefesh. Titi, who they also allowed it. Machshiri Ochel Nefesh. Now we of course don't pass them like that, and you probably, I think it's the name Rabbi Eliezer. Let's say, no. Rabbi Eliezer on Shabbos. I'm sorry, that's Machshiri Mitzvah. No, this is Rabbi Yehuda on Yontif, right? And it says Machshiri Ochel Nefesh. They also allowed the preparation to make ochel nefesh on Yontif. No, way before that. Making knives. Making knives. Preparing knives. Look.
We don't pass.
No, we don't pass it. Right, look, you'll see immediately. What's the difference? Can you sharpen the head of a skewer? Right? So if you hold only ochel nefesh is mutter, that's not ochel nefesh. So machshiri ochel nefesh is mutter, that's preparing for the ochel nefesh. Another difference, which is very basic, Rabbi Chanina says, B'shirei Drayavo says, V'hotzi eish mina avonim p'nei. Can you strike a match? Striking a match is machshiri ochel nefesh. You see here the Tziyun Yerushalmi says that there's a riot for the Rambam that the reason we're not allowed to strike a match on Yontif is because of machshiri ochel nefesh, not because the Ravid says that it's has to be mucham mibad yom. I don't know what the Ravid says exactly, but you see here that you're not allowed to strike a match because of it's machshirin. It's not ochel nefesh. Ochel nefesh is cooking. This is a step removed. You don't allow machshiri ochel nefesh on Yontif.
It doesn't do creating fire, creating.
That's what I would have thought, right? Maybe we'll see when we get to Bates on the Bavli. We'll see that, but that's not what it says here, right? I should have looked up the Torah and Rishonim on that. Maybe it says something quickly. We'll take a look. Yeah. Nope. He's silent. It doesn't bring down parallel. Okay. The Yifei Naim sometimes does better. I don't have the Yifei Naim in the back of my Gemara. Back a different one. Okay, I don't know. So Naaman, so it says more further. Tani Rabbi Yehuda Bar Pazi said, the Bar Zila said, Hu Adover. This is it. Ma'u Adover. What does it mean? This is it. The Chadesh Rosh Sakin Hu Adover. He's what basically said. L'Chadesh Rosh Adover. Or L'Hotzi Eish Min Avodim Hu Adover. Are either of these the proper examples? Leisloch elokador. No, I'll give you a better example. Only like this one, which is a very interesting example. Ein mashchizin es a sakin hamasiya gabe chaverta. One is not allowed to sharpen a knife, but one is allowed to draw it against its friend. You know, that's another way of sharpening. So that sounds like it's that's a nafkamina, right? If we allow that, that's like Rabbi Yehuda. If we don't allow it, it's like Rabbana. I'm Rechista, no, the Rabbi Yehuda he. No, the Rechista said that's like Rabbi Yehuda. So someone must be missing some sort of gears to change here. I don't know. If doesn't change it. But it says, the word, the letter Dal, it's bothering me. It should be really Amar. Amar Avida B'Shem Shmuel, Divrei HaKoli. No, there it's different. There, you're not doing it to sharpen. You know why you're doing it? In order to remove the fat on the knife. So you're doing it in order to remove the fat on the knife, so then that's okay, even if it looks like sharpening. So it's really not, in order to sharpen would be machshiri ochel nefesh. It's to clean it. So cleaning is not an isser. Okay, sharpening is also. But all depends on your intent. But even Rabbanan can be mad to be doing to remove the fat.
It's not a psik ratio.
I guess not. I guess it's not a psik ratio. Yeah, my looks only Marasainish, and the one goes to Marasain.
But we decided Yerushalmi doesn't hold by psik ratio anyway.
So we never saw it explicitly, though.
True.
Yeah, we just know that the people say that. In any event, Kol Elu B'Yotiv Ain't Tzarech Lomar B'Shabbos. All these things are also on Yotiv. They're certainly also on Shabbos, right? These are the only differences between Yotiv and Shabbos. Ochel Nefesh. I got a very fine difference between Shabbos and Yotiv. Which our Mishnah not enumerate. Skila b'Shabbos ain't skila b'Yotiv. You transgress Shabbos, you get stoned. You transgress Yontif, you don't get stoned. Kodesh b'Shabbos. If you do it intentionally, you get skila. If you do it with Eidim Asra, you get skila. Do it without Eidim Asra, Kodesh b'Shabbos, ain't Kodesh b'Yontif. Makas b'Yontif. And vice versa, if you transgress Yontif, you get flogged. Ain't Makas b'Shabbos. Since it's a lav anitan l'Asoras misas basement. So it's a lot for which you could get the capital punishment, so if you don't get flogged for transgressing it. So it says the Gemara, maybe you'll say, so we only want to speak about things about ochel nefesh. We don't want to give all the differences. We wouldn't be here all day. We want to just give for stuff which has to do with ochel nefesh. So I ask you, Akasha, why don't you mention these as well? This is not directly related in the sense of preparation, but in the sense of what Rabbanan Asr or not. In other words, you're allowed to throw fruit down your chimney on Shabbos from your roof if it's going to rain. Below Shabbos, but not on Shabbos. The reason is not so much because of any Melach D'Oraisa, because of Tircha Yisera. Rabbanan were more machmir by Tircha Yisera by Shabbos and by Yontif. So why do we mention that case? V'omin Adar, why do we mention this case? Shochin Atzei B'Samim L'Mila B'Yontif, what is allowed to grind wood for B'Samim on Shabbos, on Yontif, but not on Bris Milah. For Bris Milah on Yontif, but not on Shabbos. I think that's kind of like a hoil. Since you could use the B'Samim for ochel nefesh, so allow you to grind it also for Milah. But we don't allow you to grind it, of course, on Shabbos. Grinding is absolutely forbidden on Shabbos, right? And furthermore, another case. Vusham Rabbi Yosef Vushamal. Rabbi Yosef says it's only after his meal, it's mutter, not before the Bris Milah. Furthermore, another case. Why do we mention this other case? The Tani we learned that if you have sealed containers in the ground, they're embedded in the ground, we're very machmir on them. Shemefak b'kilu mafkiin, that on Yontif you're allowed to loosen the rope, mafkiin, unthread the rope, matirin, untie the rope, chotchin, and cut it. B'Shabbos, however, when it's one which is in the ground, mefak b'kim, you're allowed to loosen it, avalo mafkim, but not unthread it, v'lo matirin, nor undo it, v'lo chotchim, and not cut it. U'v'kelim b'Shabbos mutar, and kelim, though, however, if it's not something embedded in the ground, so it's much less severe marasayin in terms of binyan or boneh, and kelim b'Shabbos mutar, on Shabbos permissible, ain't tzolchim arviyon, goes out saying on Yontif it's permissible as well. So why do we mention this difference between kelim shebekarka and kelim on Yontif, kelim shebekarka on Shabbos, and all these questions are good questions, and of course Yerushalmi cuts two dots, and it ain't gonna answer it. So basically it's like Tana v'Shir. I know in the Bible you would say Tana v'Shir. The Tana mentioned one difference, and there are other differences which the Tana didn't bother to mention. But that doesn't mean that this is an exhaustive list. Okay? Says more further. Amen Shabbos Yom Kippurim Meshuzez don't be the other says don't be course. No difference between Shabbos Yom Kippur, except that one if you do it b'mezid, it is kares, and one if you do it b'mezid, it is skila. Now here Gemara goes into a fascinating discussion. It sounds like in terms of payment they're both equal. Right? What does it mean?
Well, we both died, but one is death by man, and the other is death by Shemayim.
What payment are we talking about, though?
I assume that
if when the course of doing the malacha for which you're going to get put to death, you damage somebody's property. Kimle B'Rabbaneh, right. So it says here you have Kimle B'Rabbaneh, not just where you're going to get put to death by Beis Din, but also where you're going to put to death by Kores, by God.
It's a machlokas though.
Yes. The machlokas in several places in Shas, Ksuvas and Makos, but here it says that obviously it says that it actually is Kores for that. So it says the Gemara to write Kores to say Malacha. So Matznis and Rabbi Nuchuni ben Akona. This mission like Rabbi Yochanan Akona, Tanya Rabbi Yochanan Akona ben Akona Omer, Yom HaKippurim, because Shabbos v'tashlumim. Yom HaKippurim is just like Shabbos vis-a-vis tashlumim, meaning that in both cases say Kimlan Rabbinei. You only get killed and you don't have to pay. Hasheminasi Omer, Mechuyave Krisus, Mechuyave Misas Basted. People are a Chayav Koris are just like Mechuyave Misas Basted. Now, what's the difference between Rabbi ben Akona and Rabbi Shimon ben Menasio? Ma b'neo, ma navi b'neo. Ravuna says, fascinating answer, really fascinating. It says, Nara Nido b'neo. The difference is a girl who's a Nido. You have relations with a girl who's a Nara, so you have to pay her father $50. She's a Nido, you're Chayav Koris. Okay? So you have to pay the father $50. Okay? Raimon Amar, and I'm going to explain. Raimon Amar, Achos Ishto, your wife's sister, Beineon. Your wife's sister, again, same idea. You have to pay, but you're Chayav Koris. Al Daiti Rabbi Yochanan ben Akona, he says, Ma Shabbos ein lo heter. He says, Shabbos, it's never permitted. Achisur after it's forbidden. Af Yom Kippurim, so too Yom Kippurim is like Shabbos because it's similar to Shabbos in Ein Lo Heter Achisuru. It's never permitted. There's never any dispensations on Shabbos Yom Kippur. Ve'elu, however, a Nida or your wife's sister, Hora v'yesh lo en Heter Achisuran, they'll be mutter someday, right? When will Nida be mutter? Goes to the mikveh. Right? Will your wife's sister be mutter? Wife Chas v'Shalom dies. No, wife's sister. Wife's sister. Not wife's dies. So Mishalim. So after you pay, this is not the Bible. So he says, Mamish, there's only Shabbos and Yom Kippur, which are never mutter, they party you from paying. But because that's really a Kimler Raminate, an absolute Kimler Raminate, right? But a situational Kimler Raminate, right, with a relative one, which can be occasionally would not apply, that doesn't part to you. Fascinating, right? So says the Gemara, Daited Rabbi Shimon ben Menasio. Shimon ben Menasio, however, he says it's not a volt in the similarity to Shabbos Yom Kippur, rather it's a vort in the in Kores being linked to Beis Din. And therefore he says, Ma Shabbos sheish bo Kores, Yav Yom Kippurim sheish bo Kores, V'elu, and needs to, Ho v'yesh ben Kores, Einu Mishalem, right? Same thing.
Does the Gemara entertain when Shabbos and Yom Kippur come on the same day?
Not that I'm aware of. So Shabbos just obliterates Yom Kippur then. Rabbi Bar Pazi Tribi actually bought. He asked the question. Makos v'koris. What if it's not payment in koris, but makos in koris? We're liable to get makos and koris. Mami ba'il Tanai. What did these Tanoim say? Rabbi Yosef said, Tzrichel Rabbona. It's like a kasha for the rabbis. Rabbi Yonah asked, why is it kasha? Why learn after that what Shimon ben Yochai said? The time Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, Rabbi Tarvan says, Ne'emar Kores b'Shabbos, Ne'emar Kores b'Yom Kippurim. It says Kores by Shabbos and Kores by Yom Kippur. Ma Kores she'nemar b'Shabbos. It's like Kores to stay by Shabbos. Ein Makos. You can't get Makos. Why can't you get Makos by Shabbos? Because Shabbos is a law anita unless Horas Misas Beis Din. It's a law which you could potentially get the death penalty for. So therefore, even if you didn't get warned that you to Shabbos, because they both have the term Kores, so therefore the same parameter applies, okay? Ma Kores Shneimar b'Shabbos ein Makos eitzel Kores, of course, Shneimar Yom Kippurim ein Makos eitzel Kores. On Raimona come Rabbi Yossi. Raimona said in front of Rabbi Yossi, Matzrich like Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. The question is really like Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, as we will see momentarily. However, Pirank Rabbi Yochanan, Yimakos Eitzel Miso Yesh Lo. Rabbi Yochanan, if he holds that there's makas even when the potential that's the death penalty, lo kosher came makas Eitzel Koris. He's starting to get makas when potential penalty is Koris. Tispalgu because we have a machlokes. An interesting machlokes, and the Yerushalmi is very lumdish here. Hashoichet esav espino. Now it says here, it's in the Bavli, but of course I don't remember it. Hashoichet esav espino l'shem akum. You shecht an osav espino. So what do you get for shechting osav espino? A mother and son the same day. What do you get? No, not that bad. Malchus. It's just a plain Jane love. You get Malchus for it, okay? So Asher and Osav Espino l'shem aku. Rabbi Yochanan ibisu bo l'shem Osav Espino. If they warn them that it's because of Osav Espino, Loke gets Malchus. L'shem aku. If they warn him that he's doing avodah zarah, Niskal, he gets skila. So he said, we see here that he holds that even for something which you can get death penalty, you can be downgraded to Malchus. So according to him, it's pashut. You can get Malchus on Shabbos, you can get Malchus on Yom Kippur. Our Shabbos like Rav Shimon Lakish, Rav Shimon Lakish Marfili Tobo L'Shem Osav Espino. Even if they warn them about Osav Espino, ain't like he doesn't get Malchus. Me'achashidu Bo L'Shem Akum, because since they warn them about Avodah Zarah, and this guy gets Kilo. Says Mar Amalei, so he said, no, you're wrong. And this is a very beautiful answer. He says, I feel not to answer rejection. I feel like Rabbi Yochanan tzricholei. Even like Rabbi Yochanan Bakasha. Why? Taban l'shnei dvarim. There, you know, Rabbi Yochanan holds you can get Malchus and Misa theoretically, because, or I shouldn't say Malchus and Misa, but rather why you can get Malchus even though it's lav and he's on as far as Misa is based in, because it's not the same lav. There are two lavin in play. One is the lav of Avodah Zarah, and one is the lav of Osav Espino, so I can isolate one from the other. I could just warn Osav Espino, not on what day is it? What day of the week? No, not on Avodah Zarah, right? Tavash Neit Vorim. But Hochol l'Davar Echad. Here it's a Davar Echad. What's a Davar Echad? In other words, over here, when you're doing at the same time both the classic case is that you shoot an arrow, and when you're shooting the arrow, it rips somebody's clothing. Here you can't divide it in two, right? It's the shooting of the arrow which generates the obligation for Yom Kippur, and generates the obligation for payment as well. Okay, so again, Rabbi Yochanan, well, it's not a good case. Here it's about actually a case of Malchus. Forget about the payment case. Forget about a case of Malchus. So over here, we're talking about somebody who, let's say, I just said it's not a good. Scratch what I just said. Let me give you the case. I got confused with Malbich money and Kari. In other words, here we're talking about, over there we're talking about, it's the same action in both cases, but there the same action has two ramifications. We can either give you Misa for Avodah Zarah, or Malchus for Osav Espino. So therefore, we have Machlokas. Rish Lakish says you can only give him Misa, you can't give him Malchus. So it's like any Lav Shnita Azor's Misa is based in. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan, it's only give him either Malchus or Misa, depending what that Asra was. But that's only over there, where we have two alternative lavin. That's Rabbi Yochanan says you can opt for one over the instead of the other. But here there are not two alternative lavin. The shaila is, if a guy comes and he commits a avir which you chayav karetz, can I say, you know what, I'm warning you that you're going to get Malchus. I'm not warning you about the karetz. I'm not telling you about the karetz. I'm telling you only about the Malchus. So it's on the same lav. Not two separate lavin which come out of the same incident, but on the same lav. And that's the shaila, whether I can downgrade a guy from Koris to Malchus. You understand the difference? So that's the Gemara's question, and that question even a valid question called Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, I'll dive to Rav Shimon Lakish. According to Rav Shimon Lakish, Ma ben Ilain Taniel Ilain Rabbana. What's between these and these, this price and these rabbis? Now, this is a case. This is not there's information missing here, as all unfortunately point out. This is the first case in Ksuvas. There it says that there are two possibilities of why you're exempt when you have Malchus and Misa. One is that it's because it's a lav and itas haris Misa's base, and it's lav which is given over to death penalty. You can't get Malchus. The other is because it says in Torah kedei rishasa. Mishum risha achas etam mechayvo v'yatam mechayvo shtei meshuyos. One penalty. There's no double penalty. And therefore it's either or. Since it's either or, it has to be the more severe one. If it's not the more severe one, it can't be the less severe one. So what's these two approaches? So it says more very nice difference. Again, I don't remember any of this in the Bavli, but it says here, lavim lo krisus. If it's a lav which is not a kores. How so? Rabbi Yudan Amar, before, I'm not sure, he's not really adding, he's giving a different scenario, but it's the same idea. If it's a lav which is not a chorus, if it's Kedei Rishoso, which means you can only give one penalty, so that's it, you can only give one penalty, right? Which is, let's say a person has to pay Malkus and Momon, you can only give Malkus, not Momon. But if you say it's a lav anita and Soros Misas based in, that's the exemption. They can't get Malchus where you couldn't be put to death. Here you couldn't be put to death. It's just a plain lav. So therefore, you're gonna might have to undergo two penalties in that case, right? Rabbi Yudah Amar Habo Mamzeres Yisbeineu. The difference is Habo al Mamzeres. If you have a relation with the Mamzeres, there's no chiyuv miso there, but it is a lav. So the question is, we're going to flog you for having relations with a person who's forbidden. You have to pay because she was a nara. So the question is, do we say Kedei Rishoso, and we only give you one penalty? Do we say it's only a lavnita as far as misas based in one where you get the death penalty, which gets you off, and this is not one of them. Another case, if I ignite my friend's hate pile on Yontif when there's no death penalty involved, right? I'll die to deal in Tanya. Quite those Tanoim hold that it has to do with Lamia as far as Misas Payson, or at least Kores. Oh, then Ben Kores Mishan says no Kores. In this case, you got to pay. I'll die in Rabbon and oil the Eshba and Makos. Since the whole Kokadei Rishosel, you only have one penalty at a time. Hold the issue of Malchus, since there is a penalty of Malchus, Eino Mishalim, you cannot pay. It says Miato Elu Narish Islam Knas. Now the Mishnah, that's a fascinating thing. There's a whole Mishnah Perek in Ksubas, Elu Naris, about all the girls who, if you rape, you have to pay a fine. Right? Says the Gemara. That's talking about girls who are also to you. You still have to pay a fine. So says the Gemara. How could this be? Because like Rabbanan, since they hold the concept of Kedei Rishoso, right? You only get one penalty, not two. So how could all these cases going to flog them for having had forbidden licentious relations? How could you possibly make them pay? It's Kedei Rishoso, right? It's a good question, right? There's an amazing answer. No, Elunas could be going like everybody. But Mamzer Shabal Mamzeres. The guy himself was a Mamzer. And a Mamzer has legend of Mamzeres is okay. So what if he doesn't have to get flogged? What's he get? He just gets to have to pay. Alright? Ask Gemara. Going back to I'm sorry, Be'elunaros. It says right? It says you have relations with your brother's wife, so you have to pay. It says more isn't it a case of your Yavama, meaning your sister-in-law? So 1 second.
I mean, eventually he should become mutter to him.
No, but it's more than that. The question is, how's he shaykh a knas? Knas is only if you deprive her of her, if she's a nara, a psula. But she's already your brother's wife. She's your brother's wife, she's no longer a psula. Mm-hmm. So how does it work? So it says, Gemara, so by case his brother already had manafshach. I mean, you have to add here, but either she's muteres, or if she's asura, it's because she already had relations. So how do you have a case where she's forbidden, but she's still a psula, right? If she's still a psula, so she can't be married to your brother, right? If she already was married to your brother, so then she's mutter to you, right? Assuming she had no kids. So what's a case in which she's usher to you, and nevertheless you're going to have to pay knas because she's a basula? So this is what I'll give you a case. His brother had kids
From previous one.
from another wife. And then he engaged this girl, a 12-year-old girl, who maced, and then he died, and his brother came and raped her. So in that case, not permissible, and he has to pay. Okay? We can always come up with cases. Alright, there's no such thing as somebody who has taken a vow not to derive benefit from his friend. It wouldn't mean that somebody has taken a vow not to derive from him food. Eladrisis regal, except if he can walk through his backyard. The kalim she'enos mem ochel nevish, and whether he can borrow from him vessels with which you don't use to prepare food. Ain't been a dove and a dove, so the difference between a nether and a dove in terms of carbon. Elisha nether, when you say harei, right? I want to bring a carbon. It's incumbent upon me to bring a carbon. So then, if the animal you already designated died or Nilamu was stolen, you have to bring another one in its stead. The Davos, whereas if I say Harezu, this animal should be a carbon. If it dies or gets stolen, I don't have to replace it because I limited my obligation to the animal, not to my personal self. Okay, it says the Gemara, getting back to the beginning of the Mishnah, you're not allowed to lend them a pot or any other implement which you can use to make food. Ask him, well, why? Lomi machal nother. Didn't he make a vow not to provide him with food, but didn't say anything about providing with vessel to prepare food? So Kini is the way to read the Mishnah. Somebody who forswore benefit from his friend. Somebody who forswore benefit of food from his friend, not food itself, but benefit of food. That's why benefit of food precludes me borrowing any kalim with which I can make food. Okay? The time of a Rebbe came. And he also learned this way in the house of Rebbe. If I forswore the benefit of food from my friend, I cannot lend him, or the person who's forbidden cannot lend the person who took the oath, napa, a sieve, a kvar, another type of sieve, karos, plates, tamchuyim, and pots, which do not prepare the food. I'm sorry, I skipped. A grindstone, v'tanur, and an oven. Tani avol mashiu lo kosos ukars, but you're allowed to lend him cups and saucers and pots. Why is that? It also helps the food. Says one no. They're not used in order to benefit the food, which is to prepare the food. But you just use them in order to store the food, right? So in other words, when I forbid it for swore hanoyas machol, it means I cannot borrow from you anything which I use to make food. But if I use it in order to store food, I can borrow it from you. Is that clear?
So one's machshirei, and the other is
right. So with something which is just storage, is okay, not machshirei. Now it says in my lefas mukteros, to borrow pots and pans, also that's forbidden. Now that litchom lidroch, for me to do the work for the person who forswore the benefit of food from me, also is forbidden. Litchom means to grind, lidroch means to press grapes. Litzor tzricha, however, the shaila is to harvest or leave the grain, or litzor to harvest fruit tzricha, that's a shaila. And I smachol mo, is this considered to be benefit for the food, or is it too far removed? You see that? Because it's 2 steps removed. Many steps removed, actually, in the preparation process. So what? And for all I know, he's not even going to eat this. He might sell it in the marketplace. So am I allowed to help him with the harvesting and cutting? Says Mar Choya, Tani Mashilu Kardom. It says you can lend a guy an axe, right? I've been serving by man. We thought a karim should be cool, a cracking axe, meaning that it can be used to harvest. So you see, you'll have to lend him stuff for harvest, which is too far removed. Says my note. Tipata b'kurdum shalnik, which is talking about a hoeing axe, which is much even further removed, because that has nothing to do with the food. It just has to do with the plants, right? You can't derive anything from that. Ravuna said, Rav Yerushalmi boy asked question, Ain Zusta. It's a vessel made out of hairs and fibers. So normally you can't use it for food. But should be madchik, once you press onto it, it spreads the fibers. And you can grind, you can sift flour with it. Kamishinapa, is it like a sieve? Of course, Yerushalmi does that answer. Ezu, almost finished. Ezu neder sharma. What's a neder that they're talking about? Boimar real light oila says it's incumbent upon me and Ola. So therefore, if the one gets lost, I have to bring another one. Ezu double, it's a gift. Sharmu, it's talking about Boimar rezu Ola. This animal should be an Ola, right? So therefore, in that case, if the animal dies, I don't have to bring another one, right? Chama Charmin the Rabbana, Chama the friend of the rabbis. Boy. By the way, I learned recently why they were called. There are a bunch of reasons. Rabbi Chama and Rabbi Chanina, Chavrein the Rabbana. I never knew why they were called Chavrein. You know why they're called Chavrein? Because they never got smicha. In fact, it's recorded that there are two brothers who came up from Bavli and they never got smicha. It's recorded even in the Bavli. Because that's why they're called Chaver, not Rabbi.
Well,
that's Rav. Like a Babylonian Amoraim called Rav. So there's actually Rav Chama and Rav Chanina. Okay?
Maybe they didn't recognize the Babylonian smicha.
No, maybe. In any event, so it says, Chama Chama the Rabbana boy. Amar Harei Alai. What if a person said Harei Alai, a neder? The Chazar Amar Harei, and afterwards he said Harei Zeh, what's the status? Rabbi Chanina boy, Rabbi Chanina said, Lami Staber, it should be Da Ella. That's not a good question. I'll tell you to ask a better question. Amar Harei Zeh. You said Harei Zeh. Because of Amar Harei Alai, and then he said Harei Alai afterwards. Isur Chomer, the more severe prohibition of a neder. Chal Isur Chomer devolves on the lighter prohibition of the dova. Or any, well, actually, it does. It's a statement. That case is a chomer chal isur kal, but vice versa. Then first he said Harei Alai, and then he said Harei Zeh. Ein isur kal chal isur chomer. You don't get a second prohibition for that because less severe isur does not fall on top of the more severe isur. Only vice versa. We'll stop here.